our interest to be using the formula for what your trapezoidal in solving what problems. Our interest is not to prove the formula for trapezium rule or the trapezoidal rule, but our interest is what using the formula for your trapezoidal rule to what to solve problems. Now, basically, if you have a function a, b, f of what x, and you're integrating this function with respect to what x, are we together? So basically, what you have here, you simply have a definite what integration, a definite integration. Now, our elementary maths, from our elementary maths, a definite integration is an integration with what? With boundary conditions. So basically, we are seeing what the higher boundary and what the lower boundary. Are we together? Now, how do you apply your trapezoidal rule? Now, take down the formula. Now, the formula for your trapezoidal rule is basically what? H over 2 bracket y naught plus what? Yn plus 2 bracket y1 plus y2 plus y3 to yn minus 1. Now, this is the formula for calculating your trapezoidal rule, or this is the formula you use in calculating for your trapezium rule. Now, what you have here, the next thing that should come to your mind is, what are the parameters in your formula? What are the parameters in your formula? Now, basically, what we have here, we are simply saying what? H over 2. Then we are simply saying parameters of what? Y0, Yn, y1, y2 to what? Yn minus 1. Are we together? Now, if you have this in your trapezoidal formula, the first thing that comes to your mind is, what is the h here? So basically, your h here simply stands for, where your h simply stands for the height of what? The height of your interval. The height of your interval. So basically, your interval will be given to you and you'll be asked to calculate for the height of your interval. When you get the height of your interval, you simply take the height of your interval into your trapezoidal formula and calculate for your trapezoidal formula. Are we together? Now, how do you now calculate for the height of your interval? Now, the height of your interval, h, is simply what? Your higher boundary minus your lower boundary over what? N. Are we together? Now, we are seeing a new parameter being introduced. And which parameter is that? N. Now, what is N in this parameter, in this formula of what? Height. Your N simply stands for the number of interval. Your N simply stands for what? Number of what? Interval. Number of interval. So basically, your number of interval will be given to you in your question, and you'll be asked to calculate for the height of your interval. So when you calculate for the height of your interval, you basically take it back to your trapezoidal formula and what? Apply the formula to get your answer. Are we together? Now, I told you that we are not going to prove what we have here, which is the trapezoidal formula. We are going to get the concept and how to apply this formula in solving what? Different problems. Are we together? Now, basically what we have here, if we have a graph of this nature, now what we have here is simply what? Y is equal to f of what? X, which is this. Now, if you have a graph of this nature, what should come to our mind is, what is the area of this curve? What is the area of this curve? Now, when we are talking about the area of this curve, our concentration will be what is below the curve. So basically, we use strips to represent the area of this curve. So now let's divide these strips into different number. So basically, if we are dividing this strip into different number, it depends on the number given to you, the number of interval given to you. So basically, let's say you are given number of interval of 6. Are we together? So meaning we are dividing the strips, we are dividing this curve into what? 6 different portions. Are we together? So dividing this into 6 different portions with strips, we simply have what? This. We have this, as the case might be. Are we together? Now, if you have something like this, what we simply have here, if you look at the first box here, we simply have this. Now, we simply have a plane shape like this. Now, when we have a plane shape like this is simply called a trapezium. Are we together? This is simply called what? A trapezium. Now, when we are considering a trapezium, our interest is this side and this part of the equation with your what? with your width, which serves as your height. Are we together? So let's call this A and let's call this B. And your width, let's say your width is what? H. Remember, we are not proving the formula for what? Trapezoidal rule. But we want to what? To get the concept of what? Of how we came about what? The equation for what? Your trapezoidal rule. Are we together? Now, if you have a trapezium of this nature, the next thing that should come to your mind is when you are considering a trapezium, we are considering what? The area of that trapezium. Are we together? So basically, the area of this trapezium is simply what? 1 over 2 H bracket what? A plus B. Elementary maths. Are we together? Now, in this case, what we are having here is we are having what? Y naught. We are having what? Y1. We are having Y2, Y3, Y4, Y5. And as the case may be, if it continues, then you have what? Y6. Are we together? Now, what we simply have here is we are simply saying what? Instead of what? A and B, what are we seeing? We are seeing what? Y0 and what? Y1. So basically, this is simply what? This is simply having what? Your Y0 here and your Y1 here. Now, if you apply Y0 and Y1 into what we have here, the area for this trapezium will simply be what? 1 over 2H bracket what? Y0 plus what? Y1. Are we together? Now, how do they come about the equation or the formula for trapezoidal rule? Now, the formula comes about you what? Getting the area for each of the trapezium here. Getting the area for each of the trapezium. Now, after getting the area for each of the trapezium, the next thing is add up your area. Are we together? Now, if you add up your area in your graph, if you add up your area from what you are seeing here, you simply arrive at what? This formula here. Are we together? For your yn minus 1, let's say you have yn minus 1, and let's say the interval given to you was 5 given to you. Your yn minus 1, your yn minus 1 is simply what? The interval given to you minus this 1. So basically you have your initial interval and your what? Your final interval. Are we together? You have your initial interval and your what? Your final interval. So basically you simply have y5 minus 1. So you have y4. Are we together? You have y4. Now, if you have y4 and you are simply seeing what? Y0. Your y0 here simply stands for what? Your initial. While your yn simply stands for your final. Are we together? So basically what you simply have here, if you have an interval of 5, let's take an example. Let's say we are giving n of what? 5. Are we together? N of 5. So basically what we simply have is, we'll simply have h over 2 brackets y0 plus y5. Are we together? Which is yn plus 2 brackets your y1, y2 plus y3 plus what? Y4. Now, remember, we have what? Yn minus 1. Our interval given was what? 5. So, where we are going to stop is what? We are going to stop at what? N. You are going to stop at what? Y4. Because if you have yn minus 1, put in 5 here, you simply arrive at what? Y5 minus 1. 5 minus 1 is what? Is 4. So basically, this will be your what? This will be your formula when you have an interval of what? An interval of 5. Now let's take down some examples. Evaluate the function using what? Trapezoidal rule. Evaluate the function using what? Your trapezoidal rule. Now the first thing that should come to your mind is looking at the function here. You basically have a definite what? Integration. A definite integration. So what you simply do is you basically write out your definite integration, which is the integral of what? 6 to what? 0 with the function of what? 2 divided by 1 plus x raised to the power of 3. We are integrating with respect to what? X. Are we together? Now the first thing that should come to your mind is identify your A and your what? Your B. Identify your higher boundary and your lower boundary. So basically your A here is simply what? Your lower boundary, which is 0, and your B here is simply what? Your higher boundary, which is what? 6. Are we together? Now the next thing that should come to your mind is what is now the interval? What is now the interval? Now when we are talking about the interval, our concentration is the interval between your higher boundary and your what? Your lower boundary. Are we together? So basically your interest will now be what is the interval between 0 to what? 6. what is the interval between 0 to 6? Now, the interval between 0 to 6 is simply what? 6. Are we together? So, your n now is equal to what? 6. Now, you've gotten what? 3 parameters. Now, the next parameter that should come to your mind is, what is now the height? What is now the height? Now, I told you that the height is simply what? The height is simply h is equal to b minus a over what? N. B minus a over n. Now, what we have here is simply, we already know what is b, we already know what is what a, and we already know what is n, abi? Now, apply what you have here into this what? Formula. You simply have what? H is equal to, your b is what? 6 minus 0 over what? 6. Are we together? So basically what you have here is what? 6 over 6 is equal to 1. Are we together? So you've gotten the height of the interval to be what? To be 1. Now the next thing is, apply your trapezoidal formula. Are we together? Apply your trapezoidal formula. Now your trapezoidal formula says what? H over 2 into what? Y0 plus what? Yn plus 2 bracket y1 plus y2 plus what? y3 to what? Yn minus 1. Remember, from what we talked about last time was, we said when we have a graph of this nature, and this graph is divided into different steps. Now we call this what? Y0, and we call this what? Yn. So if you apply that concept here, remember the interval given to us was what? 6. So basically we have what? Y6 minus 1, which is what? Y5. Are we together? Now remember, what we have here is your initial, and what you have here is your final. So basically what you simply have here, your equation can also be written as h over 2 bracket your both ends plus 2 multiplied by your mean, which is your mean. So basically you can still use this equation to get the answer for your what? For your function given. Are we together? What is the ends? The ends are the what? The y0 and the what? Yn. Now y1, y2, y3 to what? y5 and what? And the middle. Are we together? Now if you apply that concept, if you want to apply that concept, the first thing that should come to your mind is, remember, we don't know what is what? Y1. We don't know what is what? Y2. We don't also know what is what? Y3. How do you get the Y1, Y2, Y3, Y4, and what? Y5? Now, what you do is, you simply create out a table for your what? For your given interval with respect to the function given to you. So basically, we have this function, and what is our interval? 0 to what? 6. So you create a table for your intervals and your what? Your function given to you. Now, take this down. The first thing is creating a table for your interval. So you have x, and you create a table for your what? Your function given to you, which is what? 2 over what? 1 plus x cubed. Are we together? Now, basically, we are given what? N to be what? 6. We know our interval to be what? 6. Now, if you know your interval to be 6, you simply have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what? 6. Are we together? Now, if you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, the next thing that should come to your mind is, wherever you see what? X to be what? X raised to the power of 3, you put what? 0 here to get the value for this. Then, for 1, for you to get the interval for 1, wherever you see what? X raised to the power of 3, you put what? 1 in this order. Are we together? Now, for this one, for the first one, you simply have 2 over what? 1 plus what? What's the interval? 0 cubed. Now, if you do this, you simply arrive at what? 2. Are we together? So the first interval here is what? Is 2. Go over to the next one, which is what? Y. Now, anywhere you see what? X raised to the power of 3, you substitute what? 1. So basically you have 2 over what? 1 plus what? 1 cubed. Are we together? Now, if you do this, you simply arrive at 1. Are we together? Now, what you do is take 1 to what you have here. You have what? 1 here. Are we together? Now, the next one is for the interval of 2. You simply have what? 2 bracket 1 plus what? 2 cubed. Are we together? Now, if you punch this in your calculator, you simply arrive at what? 0.22. Are we together? Now you have what 0.22 here. The next thing is to get your what your interval for 3. So you have 2 divided by 1 plus what x, which is what 3 cube. Are we together? Now if you punch this in your calculator, you simply arrive at what 0.07. Are we together? Now if you have 0.07 here, you simply take your 0.07 into your table. So you simply have 0.07. Are we together? The next thing is what? 2 over what? 1 plus 4 raised to the power of 3. So if you punch this in your calculator, you simply arrive at what? You simply arrive at 0.03, which is what? 0.03 here. Apply that to the next one, which is what? 5. Now if you do for 5, you simply arrive at 2 bracket 2 over what? 1 plus 5 cube. Are we together? Now if you do this, you simply arrive at 0.02. So this will give you 0.02. We put in what? 0.02 here. Now the last one, which is what? 6. 6 is simply what? 2 over 1 plus 6 raised to the power of 3. Now if you do this, you simply arrive at 0.009. Are we together? Approximate this because you are using what? 2 dB. Now if you do that, you simply arrive at what? 0.0. Are we together? You've gotten the intervals for your given function, which is this. Are we together? Now we know what is what y0. We know what is what y1. We know what is what y2 to what y6. So what is stopping us from carrying what we have here, taking what we have here into your given formula? You already know what is h, and what is h? H is already what 1. So what you have here is applying your trapezoidal formula. You simply have 1 over 2 bracket y0. What's your y0? Your y0 is what? 2 plus. The next thing is what? Yn. I said Yn in this case is your y final, and your y final is what? Y6. Are we together? So you have what? 0.01 plus 2 bracket y1 plus y2 plus y3 plus what? Y4 plus what? Yn minus 1. Now in this case, we said that what? Our n is what? Our n was what? Our n was 6. So we have 6 minus 1 is what? 5. So basically we have 1 over 2 brackets 2 plus what? 0.01 plus 2 into y1 plus what? Y2 plus y3 plus what? Y4 plus y5. Are we together? Now we will substitute the values for what? Y1, y2, y3, y4, and y5. What are they? You simply substitute 1, 0.2 in that order. Now if you do that, we simply have 1 over 2 into what? 2 plus 0.01 plus 2 brackets. What is your y1? Your y1 is simply what? 1 plus. Your y2 is 0. Your y2 is what? 0.22 plus your y3 0.07 plus what is y4? 0.03 plus your y5 is what? 0.02. Now if you do that, you simply arrive at now, I said the next method for solving your trapezoidal problem is what? Using the next formula here, which is what? H over 2 n plus what? 2 times your what? Your middle. Are we together? Now, if you want to apply your second formula, given here, the concept is get the functions, get your interval functions for your given function, which is what? 2 over what? 1 plus x cubed. Are we together? Now, what you will do is you create a table for your interval and you create a table for your function. Are we together? Now, the table for your function will have what? The end and the middle. Are we together? So now, take down this table. You simply have a table of this nature. Your x and your function is what? X over what? Your function is what? 2 over 1 plus x cubed. Are we together? So basically, this is your table function. This is your interval function. And you have another table for your what? Your final and your what? Your middle. Are we together? This is for your ends and this is for your middle. So basically, you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and what? 6. Are we together? Now, the first one is for 0. Now, your 0 here simply stands for your ends. Are we together? So this is basically your first end and your second end, which is what? 0, 0, and what? y6. Are we together? We have y0 and what? y6, which are your ends. Are we together? So basically, for y0 and your y6, it will be on this column. Then for your middle, for what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it will be on the second column. Are we together? So basically, for your first column, which is what? Y0, your initial, y0. Your initial will be what? Anywhere you see x cube, what do you put? 0 what? 0 raised to the power of 3. So basically, if you do that, you simply arrive at what? 2 over what? 1 plus what? 0 cube. Are we together? We did that, we got what? 2. Are we together? Now after that, the next one is for 1. The next one is for 1. Now, meaning anywhere you see x raised to the power of 3, what do you put? 1. So if you do that, you simply arrive at what? 1. Now the next one is your what? The next one is the following for 2. And 2 is what? 2 is in the middle. Are we together? Now, for 2 is anywhere you see x raised to the power of 3, you put what? 2. You simply have what? 2 over what? 1 plus what? 2 cube. Are we together? Now, if you punch this with your calculator, you simply arrive at what? 0.02. Are we together? Now, the next one is for 3. If you punch that with your calculator, you simply arrive at 2 over what? 1 plus 3 cube. Are we together? You now have what? 0.07. Are we together? Now, if you do that to the next one, which is what? 2 over 1 plus 4 raised to the power of 3, you simply arrive at what? 0.03. Now, the next one is for 5. For 5, you simply have 2 over 1 plus 5 raised to the power of 3. If you point that with your calculator, you simply arrive at what? 0.02. Now, the last one, which is the final. So, we already have what? Initial in your first column, and we have your what? Your final to be in what? Your first column. So, if you put your final in this column, you simply arrive at what? 0.009, which you approximate, you get what? 0.01. Are we together? So now let's use what? 0.01. The next thing is get the total for your final and your middle. That's what we have here. Get the total for your ends and your what? Your middle. Now the total is what? You simply punch what? 2 plus 0.01. If you do that with your calculator, you simply arrive at what? 2.01. Now the next one is to get the total for your what? Your middle. Get the total for your middle. Now if you punch the total for your middle, you simply arrive at 1.34. 1.34. Now the next thing is you've gotten the total for your middle and you've gotten the total for your what? Your both ends, which is your initial and final. Take this back to your equation. Now recall we have what? H over 2 into what? Both ends plus 2 bracket what? Both what? Middle. Are we together? Now, if you apply this equation here, we already know what is our h. Our h is what? 1. So we have 1 over 2 into both ends, which you got the total to be what? 2.01 plus 2 brackets, the total for your middle, which is what? 1.34. Now, if you do that, if you point that with your calculator, you simply arrive at what? 2.345. Now, you can see that we've gotten what? The same answer, but the steps and the approach was a different one. That's why we call it method 2. So you can choose to use the first method or the second method in solving problems dealing with trapezoidal.